Okay, guys, I gotta tell you this story. It's from my high school days. It's a bit
Uh-oh.
broad, and I probably already told you this one before, but okay, this requires a setup. I was going out to a party, it was your typical high school party, and I was getting ready to go. And before I walked out the door, my mom says, "You're not going out looking like that young man," essentially, right? And she gets me back into the laundry room, and I've got to now iron my shirt before going out. Well, I've stopped. Yeah. Well, I guess so now I'm here like ironing my shirt before I go out to a high school party. The thing is, this was during the whole grunge era. So now I'm in the laundry room like ironing a flannel shirt before going out to this party. And oh man, they gave me the riot act when I show up with like the perfectly ironed flannel shirts, or like the least I could do was like untuck it by the time I got there, but it didn't save the situation. So yeah, thanks mom for trying to make me look all nice. But at that situation, it didn't work. It didn't work.
I'm
Yeah,
sad I didn't get to pick on you for that. Somehow I
yeah.
didn't go to that party.
Why didn't
Don't
you just
worry.
go like behind the house and just like
Just roll around.
undo?
Just roll around in the dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Undo.
Look.
I mean, you do now.
I was a D&D player, so I got enough jabs from the jocks and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, nowadays ironing shirts is something of a therapy for me. So segue, that gets us into what
well done.
Masterful.
Yeah, see, I am the master of the segue, slowly but surely. First of all, welcome to the TTRPG podcast. My name is Jay Underwood.
I'm the unreadable Chris.
I'm still just Sandra Rosner, and I think that's good enough.
Today we have something really fascinating. We have our first guest. This is writer, novelist, co-author of the work 4 Fantastical Ways to Lose Your Fingers, a speculative short story collection, which you can get from various retailers online. A professional psychotherapist, self-proclaimed Scorpio and geek, and of course gamer is Z.D. Gladstone. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay!
I think that's the first time I've been called fascinating. That's really cool. I think chills just went up my spine.
Well, the verdict is still out, so now the performance anxiety should set in.
No pressure.
No pressure. So ZD, I believe you do know one of the members of this podcast.
I do indeed. I am very fortunate to be friends and colleagues with Sandra. She and I got to meet through our critique group. So been a very good source of writing inspiration and support, and she has only made me a better writer. And also she's just a cool person. So that's awesome.
That's lovely. Thank you. Usually I like when you say that I've led you astray, but we'll go with the nice ones today. Now, ZD is an amazing writer. Incredible work, especially when you do like your Victorian genre kind of things. It's just like, if you want somebody who's just master of the vibe, the spooky Halloween, that kind of like zombie, like she does it all. And it's just, you immediately get immersed in her writing. It's such a pleasure to read.
Well, ZD, let's give you the floor here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your connections is to gaming and etc.
So, okay, well, starting with gaming, because that's why we are here. I'm actually I'm relatively new to tabletop RPGs, but then I think back and I'm like, well, no, I guess I played my first game shortly after lockdown started. So it's been a few years, but it still feels new to me because I still haven't done too many campaigns. But I mean, I guess I've done D&D 5th edition, quite a long run of Monster of the Week, currently creating a character to start a Mithras campaign. My spouse is working on a Pirate Borg campaign. And then one of my New Year's resolutions was that this is the year I will be a game master, and I plan on running Girl by Moonlight. So maybe I'm not as new at this as I thought, but I still feel like a noob.
Not at all. Pirate Borg is taking over the TRPG space by storm, by Tempest, I suppose. Yeah, dog.
Oh my God! Every time my spouse and I are in the car, he changes the music to pirate music now. So I've got so shanties in the back of my head all the time. It's great.
That's a good place to be in, though. If you're gonna get some
Yes.
earworms, let it be sea shanties.
Right? So true.
Yeah, until you have to keep meeting with the HR people because you're getting, clients to like walk the plank or something like that.
Yeah, indeed, indeed.
Sorry, I got too into it.
Which I guess brings me to the real reason I'm here, which is, yes, I am a psychotherapist. I am a duly licensed mental health and addiction therapist. I have been working primarily with teens in the greater Seattle area for about a little over 15 years. Hence why so much escapism with the writing and the games and all of that stuff, because reality can get really real when you're a therapist sometimes.
Are you self-diagnosing right now?
I self-diagnose with excellent coping skills. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we've got a bunch of questions that we'd love to ask you. I think we'll just jump right into it, and let's go.
So, is there like a general consensus on how like TTRPGs are viewed amongst like the psychotherapists community?
No.
No.
Short answer.
Straightforward. No.
I mean, that's a very broad question. Like, because the first thing that pops into my head is I'm thinking about all of the awesome people I have worked with and trained with and gone to, conventions and so forth with, and I'm talking about different psychotherapy conventions, and
Which must be a blast, by the way, psychotherapy.
Oh,
they can be. They really can be.
The after party is
actually.
off the hook.
everything you say.
Basically, yeah. Well, I mean, there's one particular one. Okay, this was not a. There's one in Washington State called Counselor Camp, which is like a weekend summer camp. It is in the woods. We do drum circles. We toast marshmallows. It is so freaking rad. I love Counselor Camp with a passion. So yes, sometimes the after party really is off the hook, because sometimes you wind up with toasted marshmallow in your hair, and that is the sign of a good camp out, in my opinion.
One of our DMs is really fond of marshmallows, so it's funny you say that.
Better than those greasy potato chips.
Yeah, he's banned crunchy snacks at his table and just kind of like tries to get everyone addicted to marshmallows, apparently. He's like, you want them, you want them.
I mean, if you have an open flame, then the answer is yes. But anyway, sorry, I feel like I went off on a tangent there. But I was going to say, you meet people from all walks of life with every kind of personality, every kind of range of interests. And so like I have worked with other therapists who are hardcore gamers. I mean, hardcore, put me to shame. And then, also meet people who are, very sophisticated. And the idea of, I think they only read nonfiction and they only listen to NPR. And, and then you find everybody.
You've come to the wrong podcast then.
No, we support NPR.
I love NPR. The NPR is on my list of nerdtum, but it's not the only thing I listen to. So, like, if you're talking about consensus in terms of, like, interest, nope. If you're talking about consensus in terms of whether or not it's a good thing for people to do, nope. If you're talking about consensus in terms of whether or not it can be a therapeutic tool, nope. Because, dude, most of us will try any tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
So we're open.
So the right tool is the one that works, right? So in talking to other players and other GMs, they tend to have like favorite characters, or favorite classes, favorite game types, favorite play styles, even. In your, this is probably more of a experienced question for your TTRPG side, but through the lens of your professionalism, do you see that there's a certain type of like class, play style, whatever, that tends to attract certain personality types? Do you find that that's, necessarily problematic, or, that's just a good thing that you're comfortable with what you're playing over and over again?
And then let me add to that question by saying, and having met us for the last 15 minutes, if you were to assign us with as a character class in your campaign as the GM, which would you give us?
Oh yeah.
I don't have the experience to do that, unfortunately. Let me get back to you after I run Girl by Moonlight, and then I can tell you exactly which kind of magical girl you would be.
Fair enough.
Let's just settle for that. I swear I almost saw anime sparkles around your eyes when you said yay just now.
Yeah. It's like which My Little Pony are you? Take this quiz.
Yep, basically. I think the biggest difference that I see really comes down to the rigidity of the rules.
Oh.
I mean, there are some game masters and some players who are just, nope, this is it. This is, it's got to be this, and if it's not, blah, blah, blah. And I see a lot of friction in those between the game masters and the players, and then you get the opposite, which are people who are like, that sounds cool. So what if that, doesn't work with any of the, game mechanics or something? Read for it. And you see what you get. And that can also end up causing friction because I think favoritism can come out with that. Because some people are like, you didn't let me do it. Or you wouldn't let me get away with that, but you let George get away with that or whatever. So I think you see that, or I've seen that. And I'm reluctant to assign that to a personality type because honestly, personality types are one of those things where it's like, oh, get just two therapists in the room and watch them duke it out as to how valuable a tool that is. But I think that it is indicative of somebody's their comfort level with control and releasing control. And also, I think the attitude that somebody brings to the game is, is this about everybody? Is it about the group experience and having fun along the way? Or is this about playing a game by the rules? Are we at the Olympics or are we playing in the backyard? You know what I mean?
It's said within the RPG community, there's the dichotomy between the theater nerds and like the chess kids and stuff. So the chess kids are all about following these strict rules and like playing it the right way and kind of elegant. Where the theater nerds are just like, yeah, like whatever. Let's see what sticks and throw something at the wall and go for it. And you can obviously tell which one I probably am, even though I just got over 1,000 elo on my chess ranking the other day. Yay!
Shameless plug.
This is not about me. This is not about me. Speaking of power and control. Oh God. Let me psychoanalyze this podcast from episode 1 to now.
Jesus. You're all weird.
But yeah. Bringing the rules barrier to entry, I do think is something of a turnoff to a lot of people when they see these 200-page booklets or something like that. I mean, which is kind of that style has sort of gone by the wayside with a lot of the new indie RPGs, which are now like kind of 20-page rule books and what have you. But that might be part of sort of barrier to entry. Yeah. I've got one more question before we take a quick break. That is that there is now a growing number of work out there on how empathy and social skills can be improved via the playing of TRPG, like people getting out of their kind of out of their shell, as it were. Have you ever explored this in your own line of work or thought about using this as part of a sort of RPG therapy?
Oh yeah. Actually, the agency I work at, we're tossing around whether or not we want to do a group, a therapeutic group with an RPG this year. It's something that if we do it, one of our clinicians will have to go to a more formal training on it. But that's the thing. There are these formal trainings on how to use this as an evidence-based tool now, which is pretty cool. And there are actually 2 organizations in my area. One of them is called Game to Grow. The other one, I'm blanking on the name, but I could look it up. And that's what they do. They specifically do these therapeutic RPGs with these kids, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. I hear good things about it. So I think that, I'm not sure. So I'm also a clinical supervisor.
Oh,
So I've got like so many. There's like, if I had infinite time, I could do so many trainings. There are so many trainings, so many
Yeah.
different areas of specialty that I'm like, oh, I want to do that, and I want to do that, but I don't have the time
I love
for
the
all
inner
of
conflict
those.
between like the administrator and the sort of like in the field.
Oh God, yeah, yeah,
Never the twain shall meet, right?
yeah. But someday maybe. Once I've already got down all these other things. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually.
All right, we have Z.D. Gladstone here, our resident psychotherapist,
In the
here to talk with
house.
us in the house. The doctor is in.
Just to reassure you, because people do wonder about this, if you're not paying me, I'm not psychoanalyzing you. So
Oh,
don't worry.
I am off the clock.
Asterix, but I am a little bit.
Oh my god.
all righty. Well, we hear a lot today about like the importance of like safe spaces. And do you think that like a TTRPG might be able to be used as a tool to help players dive into these personal fears or insecurities and etc., and still maintain like a game-like quality?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so when you talk about like, kind of, I always think of it like dipping your toes. If you're somebody's like, I've got that big spooky thing that I don't want to talk about, don't want to deal with, don't want to acknowledge, and then they finally like wind up in therapy and they're like, all right, fine. Yes, there's a big scary lake. Do not disturb the water. Stop throwing the rocks in and say goodbye to Bill the Pony. And now we're gonna dip our toes in. And when you do that, usually your therapist is doing that through some form of exposure work. And exposure work could be, people think of that with phobias like, oh, I'm afraid of elevators. You're going to go put me in an elevator. That is one way to do it. But also, exposure therapy can be just talking about something. It can be writing it down. It could be drawing a picture of it. It could be doing all of those things. And for something that's too big, too scary, if you're not ready to actually dip your toes into it yet, you can, try doing it by looking at stories about other bodies of water, metaphorically. And so you would do that by like, all right, well, let's play a game. You can play a game where you're exploring these feelings. Building emotional vocabulary is huge. So finding a safe way to do that that's kind of impersonal, helping people identify what a feeling might be like, talking about it, finding different words for it, different ways to practice expression through action. Of course, you're just saying it, unless you're LARPing, which, hard to do that in a therapist's office. Probably would be a lot of fun, probably would necessitate a lot more space. But yeah, so that's a very long way of saying, yes, that was the answer to your question. Yes, you can. Actually, I think it's probably a pretty darn good idea.
It sounds like part of the kind of positive psychology movement in a way. It's like reframing the insecurities and traumas by way of like a more positive reference point in a sense, right? And say like, okay, I got to go to work every Monday, and by doing that, what you're doing is making work on Monday this horrible thing. But you say, I got to go to work on Monday, and you sort of like reframe it in this way that like this is a wonderful, joyous thing that you're less at risk of making it a terrible thing or something like that. Or am I barking up the wrong tree here with this?
No, I'd say that that's very true. The psychobabble term for that from cognitive behavioral therapy would be reframing. How do you find a way to basically just reframe something? If you can't make it to a positive thing, at least make it not a horrible negative thing. It's when we get stuck in one way of looking at things that we tend to get bogged down. Actually, my personal mantra, which is a quote from Richard Bach's Illusion, is perspective: use it or lose it. And that is so applicable to life in general, but psychotherapy especially.
I have a fear of flying, but I think I only have a fear of flying for every time I talk about my fear. I talk about my fear of flying, and so I've just like ingrained this fear of flying. Everything was saying, "Oh, what are you afraid about? Flying? Okay, well now I am that, and the people just have this tendency to do that. Yeah, so yeah, and being aware that you're doing something either positive or negative to yourself by the way that you're speaking and the way that you're acting is part of that perspective, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that self-awareness is so huge. One of the best things to cultivate, and this again is a great way that RPGs can help with this. One of the best things that people can do if they are struggling with, say, anxiety or depression, and they have those ruminating thoughts, trauma as well, is to gain a certain meta-aware self. Approach your feelings and your thoughts with compassionate curiosity. Like, well, it's very interesting that I had that reaction to that person cutting me off in traffic. I wonder why I had that reaction. And the idea is that when you can notice what you are doing and remove yourself from it enough that you can think it over. You don't want to think it to death. I mean, that's another way that you can get stuck in a thought spiral. But, notice with compassionate curiosity, that's how we learn about ourselves. And that's how we can start to notice when we're getting stuck in thinking traps or, falling into patterns that we weren't aware of before. And what is a better way to look at have that meta awareness than having a fictional character? Okay, well, now my character's in a situation where they're, damned if they do and damned if they don't. So what is their reaction going to be, and why would they think that through? That's a great way to practice. I think it's a good idea, and this is very much a session 0 thing, or even a session -1, depending on how you want to think of it. I think it's a great idea for people to talk this through as a group, collaboratively. How do we want to address these? Because here's the thing. As I'm fond of telling people, I'm not a psychic, I'm a psychotherapist, which means that, I miss cues from my clients sometimes. And I got 7 years of higher education and 15 years of experience under my belt, right? So how could I possibly expect a game master who has a lot of other things that they're thinking about in this moment, a ton of lore and rules and so on and so forth. Is it possible that they might get distracted and not notice necessarily the subtle cues of somebody having a bit of a freak out? Maybe possibly. So like I think that it's important to try to set those things up ahead of time. Let people know that it's okay to raise their hand or, ring a bell or whatever the cue needs to be, that like, hey, I need a break, or I need a one-on-one conversation with you, or whatever it may be. Hopefully you can get to a place where everybody is on the same page and there's not going to be any embarrassment or hesitation behind it. It might take some practice. And that's also a great time to ask, like, hey, let's see if there are any topics that are off the table. Is there things that I need to make sure that doesn't get into this campaign? And if you're not comfortable talking about it in front of the other players, then talk to me about it one-on-one before our next session. So communication is a good thing. I'm pretty fond of it.
Yes.
Try and do it multiple times a day.
Working in an audio format, we're pretty fond of it as well.
I bet, yes.
So you definitely hit on like we had a session 0 episode where we tread into having these open conversations with your players. One version that we hit on in our own games is from a board game called Alice is Missing. They have the X card, basically. So if anytime during the game somebody just feels really uncomfortable or heading into that triggered territory, they just raise the card. There's no explanation given. You just stop. You just reroute away from that. So it sounds like something like that would be another way to engage with your players in a safe way, to just no explanation needed. Just we're just going to stop doing that right now. But if you raise your X card, say in this particular scenario, but you're still not kind of like the turning away from the topic hasn't resolved your feelings. Like what could a player do in that moment to try to recenter themselves and not necessarily have to leave the table or explain themselves, but what kind of things could they do to get back
Just go,
to
fuck it, I'm out.
a better state?
Drop the mic.
They could curl up in a ball and hide under the table. That's always a valid strategy. But there was a book that came out a long time ago. Oh gosh, I honestly can't even remember, but I mean, definitely well over a decade back, called, oh shoot, what was the title? Why don't zebras have PTSD or something like that? The idea was
Best book title ever.
Yeah.
I know. It was something like that. It was like, why don't zebras have PTSD, or why don't zebras have meltdowns, or something like that. I have to go back and look for it. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Do all my research for me. I don't need to remember these things. Premise is what's important, which is that if you look in the wild, like if you're a zebra out in the wild, you are constantly on the lookout for predators. And the odds are you probably are in a life and death scenario more days than not. And probably some of your zebra kin have been brutally attacked and maybe even murdered right in front of your face. So then why don't they have PTSD? Why don't they show those kinds of symptoms? So the author was looking at the behaviors that zebras and other mammals do in those circumstances to basically ground themselves immediately afterwards. And they found that there's some very useful behaviors that seem to run the whole thing. One is drinking water. Hydrate.
Wow.
Yeah. Not only does a raised cortisol is your stress hormone. Not only does a raised cortisol level throw your electrolytes out of whack and dehydrate you, but also if you're trying to get the part of your brain called the amygdala, I'm going to try to clear myself here so I do not go into full college lecture mode. If the part of your brain that's responsible for your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that is your amygdala, is activated, it puts your body into gotta prepare for life and death. There's only two ways to get it to shut the heck up. One is time, but that could be a very long time, depending on how escalated you were. The other is to intentionally do things physically that you could not do if you were fighting for your life. You cannot stop for a nice drink of cool water if you are in the middle of escaping a lion attack. Wow. Similarly, you will not stop for a leisurely snack.
Like
if you are like marshmallows. Which that sugar, also probably a good thing to help balance out those electrolytes. This is where, if you ever wonder why so many therapists are constantly trying to get you to do breathing techniques, because you can't breathe slowly and controlled if you are fighting off a lion. You just can't. Stretching. An interesting one that a lot of people don't like doing because they feel too embarrassed is shakes. Like if you watch nature videos, you will see that once the zebras or wildebeests or whatever, critter, bunny rabbits just escaped the predator, what they'll do is they'll do a quick shake. Looks like a dog shaking water off, that kind of. Try it. The next time you have just been through something that escalated the hell out of you, do some shakes and you will notice it almost instantly and you'll be like, what the fuck? Oh, sorry, can I swear?
No,
Sorry, I work with
we
teenagers.
do all the time.
Thank God. Okay. Phew.
Get that energy out in some way other than like some like violent way or verbally sort of aggressive way. Like you're getting the energy out right through your body.
Well,
I love this.
When they say when they say shake it off, I mean, literally, you shake and you will notice like instantly, like you won't be totally zen, but you will notice that you were not as escalated as you were just before you did the shake, which took you a whole 3 seconds. Other ones would include sleeping and fornicating.
Ooh.
Yes, I was going to say, make sure you're choosing the right place and time for that last one. So,
I mean, also the first one. Don't drive. Don't sleep.
Yeah.
Don't have sex.
Yeah,
Don't combine
true.
it.
In a moving vehicle.
Instead of shake it off, I prefer drink it off or sex it off. But
yeah, those things do tend to take longer, though. So those are things that you could do.
Speak for yourself.
Watch out for yourself.
Oh, we're getting rowdy.
Self-monitor. You know, the number. What's the expression? Please apply your own oxygen mask before helping others. It's important to be making sure that you're okay. Human beings are much better at picking up on other people's cues and responding appropriately to other people when they are calm. So if you can be self-monitoring, because I can imagine it could get stressful. You know, these are things I'm expecting and hoping to become a game master myself later this year. If you had an idea and it didn't turn out the way you want, and you're suddenly going, oh crap, now what do I do? Because I thought this was going to happen and now I don't know. Or maybe you're seeing two of your players, you know, possibly starting to get into an argument or something, or maybe something happened to activate you. So self-monitor, self-soothe, all that good stuff, because you got to look out for yourself. That's the best way to look out for others.
Amazing answer.
if you have like, you know, two players are getting a little bit heated at the table, of course, you know, check yourself before engaging. But are there some other like strategies that like DMs can use to try to mediate conflicts between players?
I might be overthinking this one because my first thought is, yes, there are lots of useful online courses you can take to learn how to be a mediator. Don't think that's what you meant.
See the links below in the show notes.
One of the best things that you can do is call a break and separate people. It takes a while for people's, I talked about cortisol, that stress hormone. It just takes time for cortisol levels to drain, for them to go back down. And that time that it takes is different for different people. But I find that if you take a break, you know, if circumstances allow, be like, all right, everybody take 10 and let's, you go walk around outside and you go walk around inside.
You go home.
It's like dealing with two bad puppies. It's like separate.
Really. I mean, I said that in a very bossy way. You probably don't want to do that. The best way to make sure that you are escalating a situation is to say to somebody, hey, calm down. That works. I would say take a break, give people at least 5 to 10 minutes, and then check in with them separately. And I would say go ahead and ask them to rate themselves. Like, hey, 1 to 10, how are you doing? How escalated are you still feeling? And if anybody gives you anything 6 or above, then I'd be like, all right, let's talk about what would help you to get lower before we come back together. Because it might be that having that time during the break, hopefully people can think about what was it about this that got my goat. Maybe they might be like, you know what, I think I took that totally the wrong way. I know, Susanna, and Susanna would never mean things that way. Or like, yeah, I think George is probably, saying that because they're coming at this from this direction that has nothing to do with me or whatever. But maybe not. Maybe somebody spent that entire 10 minutes ruminating and just being like, George has it in for me. I know it. In which case,
George, though.
before we get,
George.
George, I've
George.
had my suspicions about him.
Asshole.
I
Yeah,
couldn't pay me enough to be his therapist. God.
So I know outside of this, we've had discussions about how scarce mental health can be to access for a lot of people, especially youths. So I wanted to just kind of pick your brain a little bit on that. Are there like good and bad ways to potentially try to, you know, facilitate like more personal growth? Now, always a trained therapist is going to be the best route to resolving problems. But if that's just not available, is there like a really good path or a that somebody could go down to at least try to get some little bit of a jump start on
I'm
their
a big
own
believer
emotional
that knowledge is
well-being?
power. So I would say to try and go and learn some good stuff. Of course, I say that, and then I remember, oh yes, haha, we're in that age where finding good information is so
Yeah.
hard because people conflate opinion with truth all the time. So I think, is it okay for me to talk about other
Yeah, absolutely.
podcasts? I would think, okay, I would say, honestly, if you're looking for a good introduction to like actual psychology,
Oh, I love
Hidden
Hidden Brain.
Brain is a pretty solid
Great
podcast.
recommendation.
Yep. Yeah, and part of what I like about that is particular podcast is because it is, based in the science of psychology. Psychology is a soft science, but it's a science. And all of the guests that are on there are professionals, are professors, are researchers. So they present it in such good, useful ways. And so I think hearing those different, stories from those researchers is a good way to kind of get that going. And then that I think can help point you towards other good resources. There's some really great books out there. I would say be wary of anybody. Here I am saying, be wary of podcasts. No,
Especially this one.
be wary of, no, be wary of anybody touting self-help who does not go to great lengths to back up what they are saying with good research. And also beware of anybody who says that something is a fits all.
Yeah.
There is no, if there was one right way to do therapy, if there was one right way for personal growth, we would have figured it out a long time ago. And my profession would not exist because we would have solved the problems. But there isn't. It's, finding the right approach is like finding the best possible pair of shoes. And you got to try on a lot of pairs. If you are lucky enough to be in an area and have the resources to try out a couple different therapists, do. Because if it's not a good fit, you are not going to go the distance.
Amazing advice.
Or with them. Please do not actually put your feet into your therapist. That's...
So, Z.D. Gladstone, rapid fire. We're going to give you a bunch of stuff. Yes and no questions, this and that questions. You just got to go. Just pick one. Don't think about it too much. Go with your instinct. Go with your gut. Word association, that kind of thing. You got the other thing. Exactly. Exactly.
She's
Okay.
got it. She's got
Lightning
it.
round.
Okay. Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Favorite character class?
Good. Don't tell me it's OP. I don't care.
Theater of the Mind or Battle Maps?
That was my next one.
I mean, it's got the word mind in it, so theater of the mind.
Yes.
Gauche. Marvel or DC?
Oh, I can't answer that one. My spouse is in the other room and he can hear me.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
So the opposite of the spouse.
Analyze that. Chris.
Pencil or pen?
Pencil.
Oh.
Your iced tea sweetened or unsweetened?
Unsweetened.
Hmm.
Goes with more foods.
Pajama bottoms and sweatpants are the same thing.
Oh,
No.
I would. I
Definitely
never.
not.
Uh-oh.
And
Werewolf or
pajama
vampire?
bottoms all the way. Werewolf or vampire? God, traditional vampire. Can keep those sparkle.
oh,
Take 'em
nice.
and
Very,
so tough.
very nice. Regular chicken nugget or Dyna Buddies?
I'm gonna say original chicken nuggets because they've changed the recipes over the years, and they're just
I
not the
know,
same.
I know. Yeah, you can kind of go whichever era you want of Nug
Yeah.
Nug, but
Nug. Nug is a great word. Nug is a great word.
Marshmallows or potato chips? Come on, this answer. Very important.
you already broke Chris's heart once with one of your answers.
This answer will predicate you being asked back again.
I was going to say, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say potato chip, but that's because one of my hobbies is cooking. I love cooking, and potato chips more versatile than a marshmallow.
Yeah, I'll admit that. Yeah.
What's your favorite word?
Superfluous.
Ooh.
Your least favorite word?
No.
Great answer. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
The answer to all three of those would be tea. A good cup of properly steamed tea in a really delightful cup.
What turns you off?
I have to pick one. What turns me off would be people who delight in their own ignorance.
Oh.
Whoa.
What's your favorite curse word?
Expletive. Which I realize technically is not a curse word, but like every now and again, I just like to say that instead of a curse word because it's so pure. It could just be whichever.
What sound or noise do you love?
Oh, that would be the sound of my cat purring. And she is right here next to me, by the way. She has been the whole time.
I had the same answer. What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, leaf blowers.
Yeah. Oh. Special place in hell for them.
Really, leaf blowers are just horrible things.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I mean, being a professional writer sounds great.
I mean, you're ready cheap.
I mean, kind of. Outside of that, lawyer.
Oh, nice. I can see that.
Yeah.
What was it?
I'd like to use lawyer. I'd like to use obscure details to fight for justice.
What profession would you not like to do?
Garbage collector. I have a sensitive nose.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Would you sign my book?
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, Z.D. Gladstone, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was fantastic.
Yay! Thank you, Z.D.